Hey there, it's your host, Dustin Bryant. We captured this special episode at InsurTech Insights in June 2024. Insurance is its own language, and technology is its own language. Learning a new language is hard, and we held this episode for just the right moment. The Risk and Insurance Education Alliance partnered with BrokerTech Ventures to develop a self-paced course, Introduction to Insurance for InsurTech Professionals, that is launching in October 2024. Garrett and Doug hit on the exact pain points that this course addresses. Visit www.riskeducation.org and search InsurTech. That's INSUR Tech, InsurTech on our website to view the demo, and stay tuned for the course launch in October. Now let's jump into our episode. I am very excited. Awkward is back at the InsurTech Insights USA Conference for 2024, and I've got two amazing people right in front of me. Who do I have with me, starting with you, sir?
I'm Garrett Droege. I'm the Director of Innovation and Digital Risk for IMA Financial Group.
And I'm Doug Vermolm. I'm the Volunteer Executive Director for the InsurTech Association, and I'm also a startup co-founder at a company called Turris.
Turris, awesome. Garrett is regretting that he ever met me. And it's just been a constant evolution of what can I throw his way and what will he say yes to. And I'm sorry, but you just kind of stepped into the lion's den. And
Welcome.
Time to battle, right?
You will get to know that very soon about me. I am so excited about this for several different reasons. One of the things that I'm really looking to capture here at InsurTech this year is kind of that missing dialogue piece between the risk and insurance industry and the tech industry. There's this gap of communication, and I think we just identified that we need an interpreter. And so let's talk about that. What does that mean to you guys, just what I said, needing an interpreter between these two spaces? Garrett, let's start with you.
Well, technology folks and insurance folks come from two different backgrounds, and they don't speak the same language. They have a hard time getting on the same page, and I think each intimidates the other, right? So insurance intimidates the technology companies and vice versa. And I think there's been a long resistance to embrace technology from the insurance industry. I have some suspicions as to why that is, but...
What are those suspicions?
Well, we're a fairly antiquated industry. That's a nice way of saying we're old. And we historically have not embraced change, right? So we don't like new things in insurance. We like hundreds of years of data before we decide to do anything with it. And that's just not how technology moves, and certainly not today with things like generative AI. It's moving so fast. You can't sit on the sidelines and wait. So we have to really change the way that we think about change as an industry.
Can you use change twice in the same sentence?
I just did.
Doug, what does that space mean to you?
Yeah, so I've seen this evolve over the last 5 to 10 years. When I think, in the aughts and the tens or the teens, the idea of technology and insurance, I think insurance people or insurance bros, right? That concept, that stereotype, thought they were going to come in.
Insurance pros or insurance bros?
Insurance bros.
Okay.
Insurance bros. Like tech bros, but insurance
between
bros.
us right now, I'm pretty sure he just said bros.
Right. So insurance bros were the guys that they're tech people, but they came to the market. They're like, hey, I'm going to change how insurance is done, right? And all of you insurance dummies, right, that have been around for hundreds of years, let us show you why we're smarter than you. And very quickly, they have egg on their face now, right? And now, like, they're right sizing. They're like, how can we work together? But I think, to that end, like, a lot of that is education. So can we get those technologists, those new insurance bros that are coming in, educated? And they want to be educated now. I think there is a willingness to say, how can we work together with these very storied institutions, these conservative, risk-averse institutions, but that have, especially now in the age of AI, data is more important than anything. All the ownership of the data is with these storied institutions. How can we play nice with them now for both of our longevity? And I think part of that is, can we get educated on why things are the way they are, what's important, what's not, and can that dialogue open? And hopefully, can we start right-sizing some regulation? Can we start right-sizing some norms that currently are in place? And hopefully we all end up at a better place from that, rather than at odds, one industry taking over the other. It's not going to be like that.
I have a question, though, something that in an interview that I just did, there's insurance professionals that have a long-standing history in insurance, and then there's technologists who their expertise is coding and developing and all that goes with that. Have you ever tried to speak a new language to somebody that you want to meet and can insurance professionals learn to speak technology, and can technologists learn to speak insurance in a way that we get through this communication gap a lot quicker? Or do we need an interpreter?
I think you need an interpreter, and I serve in that role for my company. And I say my background, I was a tech startup founder. I did freelance software development. I randomly got into insurance and thought I'd immediately get out. And 20 years later, still here. But I realized that's a little bit of a unicorn, having both those backgrounds. And I can sit on both sides of that fence and translate in meetings. So a lot of meetings that I sit in, that's my role, is the interpreter. So I can say, all right, here's what that means to insurance. Here's what they're saying. And here's what we're saying our needs are back to the technology company. So I think you need somebody that has that background in-house that can translate.
Is an interpreter enough, though? When it comes to speaking a language, when you're fluent in that language, creativity flows. And an interpreter is just there to take the language from one side or the other and make sure that it's being communicated clearly. Where's the space for creativity?
So I think that interpreter also has to be an educator. And so regardless of what the title is in the organization, I think if you're a carrier, right, you have the opportunity and the budget to have an innovation team that can play that interpreter and education role for both sides, right? Going and talking to the insurance executives about the high level parts of the technology, why it's important, understanding what problems need to be solved, but then taking that back to either the in-house technologists, or as you go out and talk to startups, helping them understand, like, here's our business problems, here's maybe why you can't do it in this specific way, try and find another way to do it. So I think of it as those interpreters and educators can help immerse both sides of this. Think about it. I'm going to Spain for 3 months, right? And I'm going to get immersed in the language. I'm not going to walk away and be fluent by no means, but hopefully I have now a high enough understanding to have general conversations, do my day-to-day business. And I think both sides need to be able to get to that point. But that's, in my mind, that's the interpreter/educator's role, is getting both of those groups a high enough level of education on both sides of the table.
Yeah. So both of you guys are involved in an association, if you will, just for lack of better terminology here. Garrett, you with Broker Tech Ventures, and Doug, you with InsurTech Association. And I kind of feel like y'all are working to bridge these gaps. What does that look like for each of your organizations? Doug, let's start with you.
Yeah. So for us, we are trying to be that interpreter/educator. We are trying to help, I guess, members that are lacking technology chops to come in and talk to our creator members, so we're a membership-led organization, nonprofit. Our core members are startups, right? So the insurtechs of the world that are trying to help the insurance space now, not disrupt it, not remove it. We look for members that are trying to play within the confines of this space. And so when you look at our board composition, you look at some of the members that we have that are sponsors, there are people that understand we are not coming in and having members completely disrupt their organizations. So I think the right mindset you have to start with that. So you have to find the right member composition, probably a little bit different from the Broker Tech Venture side, because we're nonprofits, so we're just more inclusive. I think you have less ability to do that, but still, like a lot of your content is out and available. I feel like I get educated from the Broker Tech Ventures content. So that in our view, if we can be as inclusive as possible, find those right groups of members on both sides and try and bridge that gap, but also do it with other community members like Broker Tech Ventures. It's not a competition. It's more like, can we find other groups that are doing that same work and team up?
I have a word for that somebody from Broker Tech Ventures introduced me to: co-opetition. It's not a competition, it's a co-opetition.
I like that.
Yeah.
Talk to me about Broker Tech Ventures space in this co-opetition.
So Broker Tech Ventures is an insurtech accelerator and VC fund that is focused on insurtech that is building products for the broker and agent system exclusively. And I think it was founded because as agents and brokers go to conferences like InsurTech Insights, we struggle to find which of these companies are for us, right? There's a lot of InsurTech here. A lot of it's being built for the carriers, for the wholesalers, MGAs. Where are the companies that are specifically trying to empower the broker ecosystem? And that's what Broker Tech Ventures looks for. So we're now in our 5th cohort, I believe. Somebody fact check me. We have 10 to 12 companies a year. They get selected and they go through the accelerator program. They work with all BTV members. IMA Financial is just one of a dozen or so member owners of the organization. And we do pilots and proof of concepts, and we work with these companies to help really refine what they're trying to build as they go scale and create that dialogue between the broker and the startup.
Yeah. Before we got started, there was a question that you said that you pose to startups when they come to Broker Tech. What was that question again?
I think it was, we pose it to each other about startups,
Okay.
Which was, what do we wish the startups knew before they came and started talking to us?
Okay. Doug, can you answer that question? What would you like to see?
Well, so I think it's just, can you find a broker to speak to? Because they're not a homogeneous group, right? And they have different sets of problems. If you talk to one, they might rank their problems in a different order versus another. Same with carrier organizations and maybe even how those two interact. So you really need to get out into the market, and brokers are willing to talk to you. They're willing. This concept, I think, of brokers being unwilling to consume or pay for technology is not true. I think we've been very disorganized about how we've tried to apply it to the brokerage space. And that's caused a lot of downstream issues around investors' concepts of startups that are focused on brokers being uninvestable, which I think is complete crap. But you do still need to go and talk to those brokers and say, am I actually solving a problem for you here? Or am I creating more work for you because I don't really understand your processes? So that's step one in my mind. And I'm sure you guys get the real answers to those questions, but I do think it's somewhat dependent upon the specific broker or groups of brokers that you're speaking to.
Yeah, or are you a solution that's just looking for a problem? We see that all the time, where companies they're close. It's like, well, it's interesting, but that's not a real, home run of a problem that we're looking to solve. It's very low on the list, but with a couple of conversations, you could quickly pivot into getting a much more scalable model that would actually resonate and would be sellable and fundable. And that's what we're looking to do, is to help these companies not make big mistakes early on, because they don't have a huge margin for error. They don't have a ton of runway. Capital's hard to raise right now. They need to prove that they can make it in today's market, and that's tough.
I'm glad you brought up are you a solution to a problem instead of working it the other way around? And the first thing that came to mind or popped into my head is the buzzy word tech stack. And what I hear when I hear tech stack is I hear premium stack, because each of these techs, more often than not, there are some that solve multiple problems at the same time, but it's usually a one-off problem. And when it comes to the insurance space, and specifically from my perspective of an independent agent space, if I have to purchase a tech that solves this problem, that problem, this problem, it's like looking at my subscriber list in my phone, and now I've got $150 a month worth of apps, and I maybe only use 2 of them. What does that bring to mind to you guys in terms of being able to be viable in the future? Are you looking for something that solves more than one problem, or does it have to be one really big problem that we're solving for it to be a one problem solution?
I mean, it's a hard question, because that's the AMS model. Like the big players, they are the nickel and dime, poster children. No offense, that's just their model. You want this service, add on, pay per seat, and at some point it becomes unsustainable as a broker. You just can't afford that kind of technology stack. But you're right. Like, we can't just be populated with a bunch of one-off solutions that don't speak to each other. It gets very hard as a user.
It's exhausting.
I have our associates that have to work with all these technologies that I bring to the table. They're like, no more. Like, I can't have another user ID and password and log in and know how to navigate this user experience versus that, or know this is my go-to-market platform, but this is my renewal platform. That doesn't work. So it's tricky.
It is tricky. And I feel like that's part of the reason why it's a slower process to adopt, because we're afraid to get started, because then it's just going to be, well, now I need this, and then I need that in order for this to work with that. And it's like, okay, I'll just let me pull out that Excel spreadsheet because it's a lot easier and I already know what to do with that. What about you? Any thoughts?
There's two issues that I see here. One is we're still running into issues of not very well designed systems. So you can't intuitively hop into it and figure out the workflow, right? And sometimes this is a workflow you might only use once or twice a month or maybe once a quarter. And so I think this idea of just handing over a system to somebody, whether it's pushed down from the carrier or you're trying to sell it into a broker, and not giving the correct training to the correct team. And really, I think you have to embed the training into the platform itself. Really, you have to say, hey, like, this is how you use this, because maybe you used it 3 months ago and now you're running this process again. So part of it is a design issue in my mind. But the other part as well, I'm seeing brokers right now use generative AI to solve some of their own problems. And if that's what you're trying to do, if you're going into a broker and just really a wrapper around an open API for OpenAI, I don't know if that's a viable product in itself. So you need to think about your solution, and is there defensibility there that I can then either turn into a platform and solve a number of different problems, get involved in a number of different workflows, or is this something that to get something quickly to market, I'm just wrapping around OpenAI? It's probably better than to just let the broker solve for that or tell them how to. I think I'm seeing really interesting one-off solutions built by brokers. They're talking about it on Twitter. It's super interesting. Go on that space and look. Like, if you're thinking about wrapping around another platform, another piece of technology, make sure that brokers aren't just doing it themselves right now, because that's probably the cheaper and better solution for them than you building it one-off for them.
Yeah. Doug, I have a question. Have you seen IMA Financial's mixed reality risk management tool?
No, but you guys are talking about it. My ears perked up. And so
Garrett,
I'm hoping.
I want to know why you're not walking around with this headset on,
Missed
managing
opportunity.
the conference.
Yeah. So we invested in a Microsoft HoloLens headset a few years ago to experiment with how could we use this technology in insurance. And we very quickly settled on loss control, risk engineering. We have a team of 60 or 70 risk engineers on our team. They go out, work with our clients. They make recommendations for property improvements, move this over there to create a better workflow.
It's phenomenal.
I'm clearly not a risk engineer, but we felt, what could we do that better if they were empowered with mixed reality? You could do things like download the AutoCAD file of this building and have a visual overlay. So instead of going, where is the control room? Oh, it's right over there. You can also circle things and save them for the underwriting file. So if you saw something problematic, you want to phone a friend, call in another team member, you can do that all in a virtual environment.
Phone a friend.
So it's kind of incredible. And then we started using it, and the team built out another 30 ideas on ways that we could use this with our clients. So it's super exciting.
When they built out those 30 ideas, what language are they speaking? Are they from the insurance side, the technology side, or are they the interpreters in the middle that are coming up? Because in order to come out with ideas, you have to be able to speak the language fluently to be creative, like we were talking about before. So what are the people that came up with those 30 ideas? Where are they sitting in that space?
They are the users of the technology.
Nice.
And I think that's
the end users of the
technology.
The end
users, the risk engineers that are actually using
That's the person.
Right. Because I can imagine what they do, but as example 5 minutes ago, I clearly can't articulate what a risk engineer says or does.
Right.
But they wore these headsets and said, we could use this for training, because we have senior risk engineers that have done this for 30 years and they're very good. We have our new risk engineers that could learn from them, but we don't have to fly them out, go on a field trip with the client. So that's not a great client experience of like, here's 5 junior risk engineers shadowing me today. But we could have an unlimited number of risk engineers watching the training occur. We get to invite underwriters to those calls so they could see the risk that they're actually underwriting, which they've never been able to do. That's kind of phase 2 of this, is building a submission that's in augmented reality.
Yeah, I love it. It's amazing. Look it up. You can watch the video of it. I actually take the news coverage of that and take it to high schools and colleges whenever I'm out talking. I'm like,
nice.
You don't have to be in insurance, but you can be in technology and learn about insurance, which means you got to take this class.
Right.
Well, and it's cool. Microsoft actually called us and said, would you be willing to go on the record as a case study for this? Because we hadn't even thought of this.
Wow.
And that's not, that sounded like a humble brag.
Because now I'm envisioning somebody bought cake and had champagne and went, oh my gosh.
Right. I didn't get cake or champagne.
Oh, dang it.
But it was, I think, a testament to the team that was using it that really embraced it. And initially, they were not thrilled with this idea. They're like, I have to do what? You're giving me what to where? No. Once they did it and they saw the possibilities, they really embraced it and came up with all these different use cases that I never would have. And that's what Microsoft saw as, would you be willing to educate the rest of the insurance Microsoft community about this? And yeah, absolutely. We also believe in, the infinite mindset and sharing ideas abundantly.
So you went from metaverse last year to mixed reality this year.
Well, they're related.
It's an evolution.
Yeah. No, they're, mixed reality is a part of the metaverse, or it could be. And when I say metaverse, that's actually what I mean. I mean, I don't mean we're all going to be sitting playing video games 24/7, but we are going to walk down the street and have glasses that tell us that's the best bagel shop in New York.
I'm here for it. I just need the glasses to tell me who it is I'm looking at.
No, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
9 times out of 10, I'm not remembering somebody's name, right?
So it'll pull up their LinkedIn profile. It will show you how you're connected with this person. Exactly. Right? Like, think about this. Like, I don't know my children's telephone numbers because I don't have to. Right? Why would I put that in my mind?
But you remember your house phone number from
like
30 years ago,
yes,
right? Or your
100%.
grandmother's number.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's what when technology's good, it replaces space in our brain so we can do other things with it. And remembering people's names was never something that occupied much space in my brain. So I'm very ready for that as well.
Nice. From the perspective of tourists, let's talk about tourists for a second.
Sure.
I want to kind of piggyback on what he brought up in keeping the end user in mind. Talk to me about that with what you're developing with tourists.
I mean, all the things I just spouted are things that we ourselves try to follow. We're not always good at it. We're busy. Everybody's busy, right? I think that what you talked about, this idea of getting your risk engineers involved, you've had to force them to do it to a degree, right? And without them playing along, or without the forcing of it, that never would have happened.
He suggested.
Sorry, yeah. The way you get a bunch of angry phone calls, like, we are autonomous humans. You can't make us do anything. No, but internally, we try to have very, very, frequent updates with any of our end users, not the purchasers of the software, because those are usually different people, but the actual person. Some of the stuff we do is...
The purchasers and the end users are not the same people.
Often not.
Like, stop talking to the person that's just purchasing it and make sure you're talking to the person that's using
100%.
it.
Well, and I'm going to let you finish, but it depends.
No, he's not.
This is I might not. This is why it's important to know the space that you're trying to sell to as a company, because sometimes it is. In a small agency, the buyer and the user can be one and the same.
That's true.
Yep.
The larger firm, that's not going to be the case. And
that's
you need
true.
to understand that there's a difference there. Sorry, go ahead.
But I mean, that's even more important, because if you're selling across multiple sizes of agencies and you are also working on the other side of the coin with some type of connectivity with an MGA or a carrier, which that's us, we are on both sides of that. We have multiple different users and stakeholders we need to think about. And so we try to break each of those workflows, even though they're all combined. We're like, who's using this today for this specific thing? So like yesterday, we did a session with somebody who probably never gets talked to within most insurance organizations, the compliance person, the person that's inputting all of, here's the product we're selling, here's the lines of authority in each state that this agency needs to sell it. This guy was happy to give his time because he's like, nobody asked my opinion on this. There are so many people in organizations like that are willing to tell you, this is what I need. This is what doesn't work. And everybody, the last 5 vendors we've worked with, it just got pushed to me. And I was told, this is what you're going to use. So that's an opportunity for startups to jump in and make a name for themselves. You're talking to the people that are actually using the end product. They want to give that feedback. And so have those conversations as often as they're willing to speak to you. I think sometimes people get annoyed with us because we ask too much of them. Don't go overboard, but at the same time, if you get to that point, then you know you're probably doing it right. And if people aren't getting annoyed with you, that means you're not having enough conversations.
Yeah.
One thing that Broker Tech Ventures does at least once a year is a reverse pitch where our members talk to startups, founders about here's what we wish you were building. These are problems that we are actively trying to solve, and let the developers in the room hear that and then go back into the lab and build that exact solution rather than, is this what you're looking for? Well, kind of, not exactly. If you'd asked me 6 months ago when you were in development, I would have told you you're 70% there.
Yeah.
You know, I think maybe we need a joint InsurTech Association, Broker Tech Ventures hackathon weekend.
I'd love it. I'm down.
Where we get some brokers to come in and say, these are the 5 things that I want solved, and let's see if people can do it in 48 hours. That'd be a cool contest.
Oh, nice.
You heard it here first.
Yeah.
I like it.
I love it.
Awkward's going to be there to cover.
Yeah.
I love it. Garrett, Doug, thanks so much for sitting in the awkward space at InsurTech Insights USA 2024. It's been a pleasure having both of you here. And now I'm like, why are you not on my panel? Because this conversation would have been it.
Well, thank you for having us.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for hanging out and listening to another Awkward Insurance Conversation.
If you haven't already, be sure to join the Awkward Insurance Facebook community. We have an amazing group of people on there.
And for more episodes, head over to the National Alliance website at scic.com. Now go forth and be awkward. Toodles!
That's awkward.